Hey everyone, I hope you're doing very well. I come to you from the sofa today. Thought I'd be a bit more casual. After my last video about the Roland Blues Cube, I thought about another interesting topic that I could discuss. As I'm sure you're all aware, I've made a point about mentioning numerous times that this amp is capable of producing brilliant valve-like amp tones, despite having no valves, or tubes if you like to call it that, in its circuitry at all. But this got me thinking. How would it sound to put a valve or tube preamp into the front end of this amp, effectively giving it the valve or tube it never had? And luckily, I have a device that allows me to try this in some form. It's a pedal that came out from the company Blackstar a few years back now. The HT Dual, as the name suggests, is a dual channel distortion pedal with actually 3 levels of gain on it. It has a clean, which can be switched with a button to a crunch on gain 1, and then on gain 2 you have a heavier distortion. They share an EQ section, but they both have independent gain and level controls, which are wired to dual concentric pots. It uses a 12AX7 valve or tube for its preamp, and in addition to its regular pedal effect function through the normal output, it has an emulated out to become its own amp, effectively bypassing the need to use an additional guitar amp, sort of becoming a DI box for the guitar. A useful bit of kit to be sure, but today I'll just be utilising the regular output and testing its valve preamp for the solid-state Blues Cube. To start, I'm just going to play an example of the clean and crunch channels from the amp with nothing from the HT Dual, so we have a reference for what the HT Dual does to the tone. In my opinion, and from previous experience of running drive pedals into this amp before, that's a great sound to build on, especially the clean channel. There's plenty of headroom and a nice wide open tone to add more drive to. Let's check out how the Blackstar's channel 1 and 2 stack up with the amp's clean tone and then the amp's crunch tone. Now then, let's whack on the amp's crunch channel and see what that does. I know some of you tech-minded folks out there will probably be thinking, why hasn't he tested this as an actual preamp by running it straight into the power amp of the Blues Cube via the effects loop return? Well, fortunately, I've remembered to test this too, but depending on your taste, some of you may see why I prefer to run this into the front end of the amp instead. It would be obvious to point out that this sounds different, but why is this the case? Well, for one, by running into the power amp only, we are completely bypassing the Blues Cube's EQ, which was set to my taste for it to sound good on its own beforehand. We can hear that the Blackstar on its own is a much darker and warmer sound, and given that I had left the EQ unadjusted for the sake of comparison to what was played in the front end of the Roland before, I have to say in a real world scenario I would need to take the time to adjust the EQ on the pedal for the sound that I prefer. There is, however, another problem that I would personally encounter, and that is tonal flexibility. You see, by running the Blackstar into the front end of the Blues Cube, I effectively have 6 different sounds to play with, meaning my tonal palette is greatly increased from the 2 or perhaps 3 channels that using the Blackstar as an exclusive preamp would afford me. It's not to say, of course, that it wouldn't be a very usable option for a rig, but it just wouldn't be my preference. So people, what do we think? To me, this setup seems to work best with the HT Dual running into the amp's clean channel in terms of the way the gain stages interact with the amp. That said, the first channel of the HT Dual running into the amp's crunch channel is, in my opinion, an awesome tone. So full of grit, still retaining some dynamic response and sustaining for days. It's just brilliant. I think this must be due to the fact that the drive from the HT Dual is stacking with what is already quite a mid-focused crunch tone, which has also been a little boosted in gain by the amp's own internal boost switch. Coupled with the Blackstar, it just sings and makes me pull all sorts of bizarre faces, as any decent amp tone should, I say. The option of using the HT Dual as an exclusive preamp, while usable, isn't for me in all honesty. The lack of flexibility and the difference in tone is a bit of a deal breaker, and the scenarios I'd use it for live require a range of gain options, and a cutting tone in a busy band mix is pretty essential for me. The other thing I want to quickly point out is, despite the fact I'm running the amp at its 15 watt power rating, it's loud. Easily gig volumes, especially considering how low the master was set for the demos. This is in no way helped by the HT Dual's valve preamp, of course. In fact, when I did use it as the full preamp, I had to put the Roland's power output up to 45 watts, as the pedal's output was pretty quiet. The sheer volume coming from the Blues Cube on its own leaves me in no doubts that this thing would be able to compete with your mate's Marshall stack. Believe me. I'd love to know which tones were your favourite from the samples I demoed in the video, so feel free to drop a comment below, and on top of that, if there are any other drive pedals you'd like to hear me run through this that I could get my hands on, let me know. And now for housekeeping. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share and subscribe so you can catch any content like this, plus anything else that you will no doubt enjoy. I still have a few spaces left for one-on-one online guitar tuition, so you can get in touch with me about that on my socials, which are linked below in the description as always. Until the next one though, folks, stay safe out there, stay positive and stay musical.